Chris, what would you say to climate sceptics who think this is all a load of nonsense?
I don't actually come across a lot of sceptics these days, people who say they disbelieve the science. What I do come across a lot is people who just haven't appreciated the scale and rate of change that needs to take place. And I think, the sort of scary pictures we see in the film are good at shaking people up in that regard. I think the next step, if you like, is once you've scared people, is to create a positive vision for the future. So what would the NHS really look like in a low carbon society, in a society that's thriving, and how, because the NHS is such an iconic institution in the UK, it touches everyone's lives. It could play a fantastic role in showing how one can systemically embed a low carbon economy into such a crucial bit of the UK.
Which leads perfectly into our first question. There are people actually viewing this webcast, which is marvellous. We've got Aaron Patel from NHS South West Essex, who asks, how will the NHS balance patients' care and community versus increasing carbon footprint by travelling extensively? So this is the idea that if you push care out into the community, you're going to increase the amount that they have to travel to get their care. Is that right? I think that, yes, there will be more travelling for professionals to and from the community centres. David?
Well, number one, it's to stop people, I suppose, unnecessarily visiting the more distant hospital, which itself is quite a big carbon producer. I think that's where the policy is. So there's two aspects. One is we can do more care in the community, though there will be obviously some travelling for some of the patients to go locally, but it's much less than going to a distant hospital. But a big component of what we're trying to do is support people to be more confident in themselves and looking after a lot of aspects of their own care. Because maybe over the years, us doctors and nurses have been telling people what to do and making them much more dependent. When a lot of us have chronic diseases now, I've got one or two myself, that and the issue is you don't necessarily have to feel ill, you just got to be aware that you've got to look after yourself better, and you need the confidence to be able to do that yourself. So a huge input has got to come from, yes, more care in the community apart from distant hospital, but support to be more confident looking after a lot of aspects of your care yourself, and that's very low carbon.
Hugh?
Yes, it's interesting, just to pick up on that question slightly tangentially. Of course, a lot of what we can promote as doctors that encourages good health fits perfectly with the low carbon agenda. So if we just look fiscally at a report that came out around 18 months ago, if we were to go into low carbon lifestyles that produced even a 30% reduction in CO2 emissions in Europe, the estimated savings even then on energy tariffs was around 76 billion euros a year. Because actually, if we exercise more, we walk and we bicycle and we don't use our cars, and we eat less red meat, which has its climate costs, and we eat more fruit and vegetables, we're healthier. So as doctors, in fact, we can be encouraging good, positive health with the side spin of climate change mitigation.
And do you think people are going to need to be incentivised in some way? I mean, it's one thing to say reduce your carbon consumption by 30%, but are we going to have to, does it have to be a financial penalty? There have to be rewards for doing this? I mean, are people just going to do it because they think it's the right thing to do? Or Angela?
Well, I think every NHS organisation is going to have to measure its carbon footprint properly straight away, and they're going to have
They're going to be required to do that.
And it's all in the NHS carbon reduction strategy. And every year we're going to have to demonstrate that we've made reductions. What happens for individuals in their own lives is up to them, because I think the percentage who, like you and myself, will make changes. I mean, my children persuaded us to get rid of our car, and it's freedom. Life has got better. But we're abnormal in doing that. I mean, I would urge people to read the report from the Centre for Alternative Technology, Zero Carbon Britain. I mean, maybe we do it by personal carbon allowances.
Okay, thank you. We've got a question now from Carl from the east of England. What is the next step for the NHS in tackling climate change? I think, Angela, that's for you first off. Next step for the NHS?
Well, I would say if you're watching this, you're probably doing something already, so keep going, well done. And you have to find ways of coping with not getting depressed about it as well. Don't feel guilty for all the changes we've made over the last decade, but do feel guilty if you're not getting off your arse and doing something now. And just make a noise in your organisation. Really make a noise. Create a conflict, because that's what gets people in the end to make changes.
Hugh.
Yes, I mean, just briefly, that when we look at what the Carbon Trust has managed to do with NHS trusts, for instance, so we're dealing now with hospital trusts, not primary care trusts. On average, the savings, again, even when energy prices were lower, were over £750,000 a year. Instant savings, that's within the first year. So actually the things we can do quickly as individuals don't require investment, and that is to take the personal action and then to engage our colleagues and just to create that culture of change that Chris referred to earlier on. Make people realise this isn't a penance they've got to be engaged in, it can be a positive and empowering experience. And it does start with the really dull stuff that Chris mentioned, switching things off. And I encourage you, if I'm at 1 o'clock in the morning wandering getting an echo machine, you find all the departmental lights on in the cardiology department. Well, actually, there are small changes in process in hospital that can change that. And you can encourage people greatly when they see what those savings are. They're relatively painless, and that's where I would start.
I'm told, Hugh, that you provide your children with low energy torches, so they're not allowed to turn the lights on at night when they go to the loo.
Oh,
Someone told me
they're
that.
allowed to, but they don't. They choose not to.
They choose not to. That's marvellous. Thank you very much to our panel. That's the end of the webcast. I do encourage you to access the film as described. If you have any difficulty, go to the NHS Sustainability Development Unit or the bmj.com to get instructions for doing that. We do hope you enjoy the film and that you will tell your friends and colleagues to watch it. Thank you very much for joining us.